If it is determined that you have to take away my visa and Eloise's visa, I want to say this publicly. It could be reported. I'm not looking for fight with anybody, but we have to be honest and open.
In a bold defiance of U.S. interference, Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, has just drawn a line in the sand. In response to the United States' latest threat over Cuba's healthcare workers in the Caribbean, Rowley declared, "I will ensure that the sovereignty of Trinidad and Tobago is known to its people and respected by all."
I just came back from California, and if I never there again in my life, I will ensure that the sovereignty of Trinidad and Tobago is known to its people and respected by all.
But what does this mean for the rest of the Caribbean, and why are we witnessing such an intense clash of power? Stay tuned as we dive deep into the controversy. For decades, Cuba has sent its doctors, nurses, and healthcare professionals to the Caribbean, saving countless lives and filling a gap where medical resources are scarce. These Cuban health brigades have been a lifeline, not just in the Caribbean, but in places across the globe. But now, the U.S. has targeted this program, accusing it of being a form of forced labor. The reason? They claim that the Cuban government is exploiting its medical professionals. But is this the full truth? Trinidad's Prime Minister, Rowley, stands unwavering in the face of this threat. Just returned from California, Rowley makes it clear, the sovereignty of Trinidad and Tobago will not be compromised. And it's not just Trinidad. Leaders from across the Caribbean are stepping up, pushing back against the U.S.'s growing interference in their internal affairs. Prime Minister Gonsalves of St. Vincent and the Grenadines boldly defended the Cuban program, calling out the misinformation being spread. He points out, maybe some people in Florida don't quite understand what's happening here. When they get the full story, they'll see they're mistaken.
The Secretary of State of the United States of America has issued a statement that countries which are complicit in his words with trafficking in persons and exploiting Cuban professionals, the doctors and engineers who come, that those who are complicit would lose their passport, they lose their visas and their families. Now, I know we're not involved in any exploitation of Cuban workers. And I know that the Cubans are not involved either, the Cuban government. I know the arrangements. And I believe that the Secretary of State is a good and decent man. I would not say anything bad about him. I don't say things. It is not in my nature to say bad things about people unless I have the evidence. And I have no evidence. And he appears to me to be a good man. And if he knows the facts, I'm sure that he will understand that we are not involved in that.
And Antigua's Prime Minister, Gaston Brown, couldn't have been more direct. The U.S. should treat the Caribbean with some degree of respect. He emphasized how the Cuban medical missions are vital for the survival of Caribbean healthcare systems and warned that punitive action would dismantle them. For years, countries like Trinidad, Antigua, St. Vincent, and Jamaica have relied on Cuban medical professionals, paying them top dollar, equal to local rates, for their expertise. They're not victims of human trafficking. They are highly skilled workers contributing to the health and well-being of the Caribbean people. In his recent address, Rowley didn't hold back. He recalled the heartbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic when countries like the U.S. prioritized their own citizens over others. And now, when the Caribbean turns to Cuba for help, the U.S. wants to strip away vital resources under the guise of human trafficking. Rowley calls it what it is, a blatant misinterpretation.
We rely a lot for our healthcare delivery on certain specialists who over the decades we have obtained from India, from the Philippines, sometimes from Africa, and mainly from Cuba. Out of the blue now we are being called human traffickers because we hire technical people who we pay top dollar equal to local rates, but we are now being accused of taking part in the program where people are being exploited. That's somebody's interpretation. And of course, there are local people here encouraging them to take away our US visas. Today, I just came back from California. And if I never there again in my life, I will ensure that the sovereignty of Trinidad and Tobago is known to its people and respected by all.
But here's the bigger question. Why is the US suddenly so threatened by Cuban doctors in the Caribbean? Could it be that these doctors, who've been essential in countries like Jamaica, Trinidad, and Guyana, are now seen as a symbol of the Caribbean's growing independence? The region's refusal to bow to external pressure is causing discomfort at the highest levels of US politics. Make no mistake, this isn't just about Cuba. It's about the Caribbean's right to decide its own future. It's about sovereignty, unity, and our refusal to be bullied. Leaders across the region are standing together, declaring that the Caribbean will not be swayed by foreign powers who seek to control us. This is a turning point, a time when the Caribbean must stand firm. As Rowley said, "If I never go back to California again in my life, I will ensure that the sovereignty of Trinidad and Tobago is respected. And we, as a united Caribbean, must ensure that our sovereignty is never questioned." So, as Trump's threats continue, the Caribbean is speaking out. We are in charge of our future. We choose who we partner with. We are stronger together, and no one, no country, will take away our dignity. The world is watching. Like, comment, and share thoughts on this fight for Caribbean sovereignty. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, truth-driven content.
If it is determined that you have to take away my visa and Eloise's visa, I want to say this publicly. It could be reported. I'm not looking for a fight with anybody. But we have to be honest and open. The hemodialysis which we do in St. Vincent at the Modern Medical and Diagnostic Center with these 60 persons, without the Cubans there, I will not be able to offer that service. So, does anybody expect that to go because I want to keep a visa, that I would let 60 persons from the poor and working people to die? It will never happen.